The Ottawa Senators have fired head coach Guy Boucher. In today's video, I want to take a look at his coaching record, the coaching history of the Senators, and see what this all might mean for the franchise moving forward. We'll discuss all that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. Big news out of Ottawa this morning: the Ottawa Senators have relieved head coach Guy Boucher of his duties. This does come as a little bit of a surprise. I'm not completely shocked here that he's let go. It's just the timing of it all. Why now? Why today? Considering how cheap owner Eugene Melnyk is, I really thought since he'd have to be paid anyways, they would just let them finish out the season. There's not that much hockey left. Clean out the coaching staff and bring on a new head coach, assistant coaches, etc. during the offseason as they go forward with this rebuild and try to find the right group of coaches to lead the kids through the rebuild and hopefully back to a little bit more respectability here sometime in the near future. But they've decided to go ahead and relieve him of his duties today. Associate coach Marc Crawford will take over on an interim basis for the remainder of the season. So I guess this does give the Senators an opportunity to evaluate Crawford as a head coach with the Senators to see if he might be a candidate moving forward. Obviously, Marc Crawford has a ton of head coaching experience in the NHL. Obviously got started with the Quebec Nordiques, followed them to the Colorado Avalanche once they relocated. Of course, he's also coached for the Vancouver Canucks, LA Kings, Dallas Stars. Before getting on with Ottawa, he, like Guy Boucher, was working over in Europe for a short period of time as well. Worked his way back to the NHL as an assistant coach here with the Senators. And really early on, looked like a pretty good hire as an assistant coach. Lots of experience to go along with Guy Boucher. So we'll see what he can do with some of these kids here down the stretch and see if they can come up with some different systems that maybe help this team make a little bit more progress here to show a little bit of positivity at least before the end of the season. Considering the timing of all this, Senators fans have had a very difficult time lately. We just went through the NHL trade deadline on Monday, which saw forwards Matt Duchene, Mark Stone, and Ryan Dzingel all get traded out of town. The returns on those trades were pretty decent. I mean, there is an argument that maybe they could have been better, but overall, I must say, given the circumstances, Pierre Dorion didn't do too bad of a job with those trades, considering those players had made it clear they were not re-signing. So moving them out was necessary. I do understand that. And then, of course, not long after that, we get the bad news that the Ottawa Downtown Arena project is basically dead. The NCC will be starting fresh here all over again. And it looks as though the Senators getting on LeBreton Flats is likely not going to happen, at least not anytime in the near future at all, unless Melnyk will sell the team and the new owners can renegotiate a new proposal or something to that effect. Hard to say what's going to happen with LeBreton Flats and if there is going to be a hockey arena there or not. I mean, the statements from Melnyk has basically indicated that they're looking now at other options, but he's also known to kind of use the media to put statements out to put pressure on certain groups or individuals to try to get his way too. So hard to say what happens with an arena, but it's just been a terrible week for bad news. Although I wouldn't call this really bad news or shocking news. I don't think many Sens fans expected Coach Guy Boucher to be returned behind the bench next season. It just kind of seems like a little bit odd timing. And like I said in the opener here, considering how cheap the owner is and where these coaches do get paid until they either contract runs out or find other employment, I just found it a little bit, odd timing, I guess. It wasn't a lot long ago, just more than 24 hours ago, we saw an article from Bruce Garriock in the Ottawa Sun where he interviewed GM Pierre Dorion. And I'll put a snippet of that interview up on the screen, where Dorion basically says that the coaching staff, including Guy Boucher, will be evaluated at the end of the season and their futures will be determined at that time. That article was only out yesterday. So yes, I know they had a game last night against the Edmonton Oilers, which resulted in another loss. But really, could have things changed that drastically in one day? I mean, they've already been losing a lot lately. They're already Team 31. It just seems like it's an odd timing. But in Guy Boucher's side of things, you can't expect to be Team 31 in the NHL for going on 2 consecutive years here and expect to keep your job moving forward. Now let's take a quick look at his record here as coach of the Ottawa Senators. As you can see on the screen, this is a snippet of Guy Boucher's coaching record, which also shows his time as head coach for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He has an eerily similar amount of time, both stints as head coach lasting 2 years and 9 months. The stint as the Ottawa Senators head coach lasted only 7 days longer than the Tampa Bay Lightning. So during his time with Ottawa, he had 228 games, a record of 94 wins, 108 losses, and 26 overtime losses, with a winning percentage of only .469. Of course, he did get 19 playoff games in there as well, with an 11-8 record, which overall wasn't too bad, which included their big run to the conference finals in his first full season as head coach. So obviously outside of that first full season where that defensive system, that 1-3-1 was really effective, they obviously had a lot of success with that, but we all know that wasn't a sustainable system, didn't last beyond that first season, and they've really been near the bottom of the league, or at the bottom, really ever since. Now, the one thing that the Ottawa Senators are going to have to be cautious of here, they've had an incredibly difficult time keeping head coaches for any really length period of time here. So let's take a look at the Ottawa Senators coaching history. You can see here, really ever since Jacques Martin was the last head coach to last for any significant period of time. He was hired in 1996 and lasted until 2004, covering parts of 9 seasons there. So Jacques Martin, you know, probably one of the last great coaches that the Senators have really seen here. Of course, Brian Murray takes over after that, and Brian Murray was a pretty decent coach. They did have a fair bit of success with Murray. Of course, he wasn't really fired from that position. He was then elevated to the position of general manager, opted to bring on a new head coach, which started off as John Paddock in 2008, and he lasted a whopping 64 games. Obviously, that did not go very well at all. Next up in 2009, we had Craig Hartsburg, who only lasted 48 games. So obviously, Brian Murray's early tenure as GM saw coaches going out really quickly. Next came Corey Clouston, obviously came up in 2009, lasted parts of 3 seasons, had a pretty, so-so record, had a .530 winning percentage, but obviously Corey Clouston was not an overly popular coach with a lot of the players, which then brings us to Paul McLean. Paul McLean, again, was also the type of coach who was really good with the players for the most part in his early going. Then things kind of seemed to change, and I'm not really sure exactly what happened, but he really lost the room there. He only lasted parts of 4 seasons, which was one of the longer tenures we've seen lately, getting in 239 games. Paul McLean's firing then led to his assistant coach, Dave Cameron, being elevated to head coach. I mean, that was not come as a shock, as Dave Cameron had a long-lasting relationship with Eugene Melnyk as well. But then Cameron didn't last very long as well, only parts of 2 years, getting in 137 games, which then takes us to the current guy, Guy Boucher, hired in 2017 and now relieved of his duties, just a little bit shy of the 3-year mark, 2 years, 9 months, and a couple of weeks here, with 228 games, a record of 94, 108, and 26. So the Ottawa Senators franchise, this seems to be a place, for the most part at least, for coaches to kind of go and just not work out. So there's got to be more to it here. Obviously, some of these guys are good coaches, and they just don't seem to be able to make it work. In Ottawa, I do think the conditions they've had to work in certainly have played a role to a degree. But when it comes to Guy Boucher, I think overall he is a decent coach. But as somebody who follows this team very closely and has been watching the Senators for many years, I do find his way of coaching a little bit frustrating. And I don't think he would be the right coach in order to take a lot of these kids through the rebuild. For example, the other day they brought up youngsters Drake Batherson and Logan Brown from the minors when they were still scratching some of their guys before the trade deadline. And they really, Brown and Batherson have been tearing it up in the American Hockey League. They're 2 of the top players down, not only for their team, but in the league, putting up a ton of points. They really made the announcement they were bringing them up. They really made it sound like they were going to be given a major opportunity to really step in and show that magic at the NHL level. And then Coach Boucher barely played them at all. Like, he just seems to rely so heavily on his veterans, regardless of their play at times. It seems to be really frustrating for the younger players. And considering this team is going to be made up of largely younger, inexperienced players, I really don't think he is the right coach to lead this team into the beginning of this rebuild here and through the rebuild. It's just not going to work out. So I'm not shocked that he's gone. Like I said, I just really suspect that the Senators will take care of business here. Probably completely clean house at the end of the year and then find their next head coach. And hopefully, whoever that may be can actually work with Dorion and Melnyk here. They need to find the right fix. There's obviously bigger problems in Ottawa than just a coach. As much as I kind of like the move and expected it to happen, it's by far one of the lesser problems with this franchise, and there's many other things that need to be fixed to really help them get out of the basement here so that they're not Team 31 again next year. Considering the last really great coach that the Senators have had, in my opinion, outside of Brian Murray, was Jacques Martin. Jacques Martin obviously went on to be a head coach for other teams, is currently an assistant with the Penguins. Maybe they could talk to Jacques Martin about coming back. I think he'd be a great fit for a lot of these young players. That's certainly right up his alley and helping young players develop and see success at the NHL level. So maybe Pierre Dorion, if you know what you're doing here, maybe you should give Jacques Martin a call and see if he's interested in coming back to Ottawa as the head coach once the Penguins season has come to a close. So of course, as always, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this coach firing. Is anybody really surprised here, or is it really just a timing that might surprise some? Leave your comments down below and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there is plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up before you go. I'd really appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.